That was almost as good as yesterday. Good morning, my name is Meg Herman and my pronouns are she, her, and I have the joy of serving on your board of trustees. It's my pleasure to welcome you here this morning. If you're here for the first time, welcome. We look forward to getting to know you better. We invite you to fill out one of the visitor information forms in the pews if you'd like, and everyone present is in the sanctuary today is welcome to join us for our community time immediately after this service. Each week, we remind ourselves of our congregation's core values: connection, transformation, justice, and acceptance. Our mission is to embody these core values in our daily lives by welcoming all, inspiring compassion, nurturing wonder, and serving community. Now, Kristen Schmidt is going to, from our stewardship committee, is going to share an announcement with you.
Good morning and happy Father's Day. My name is Kristen Schmidt. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a member of your stewardship committee. I'm here this morning to say thank you. As we nurture the value of generosity within our congregation, we know that expressions of gratitude are vitally important. The Stewardship Committee has been looking at ways that we can educate and encourage different forms of generosity and show our gratitude for gifts that come from each one of you. Just as you have supported the congregation with your annual pledges, weekly offerings, and the auction, we know that members and friends may be thinking about including our congregation in their estate plans. This type of giving is often referred to as plan giving or legacy giving. To help us share our gratitude with these individuals during their lifetime, we're delighted to share about the creation of the Legacy Circle. The Legacy Circle will allow us to give thanks today and honor individuals who will leave a lasting gift to the congregation, or those who make a gift to our endowment, the Chalice Fund, which provides perpetual income for the congregation. Legacy Circle members will be invited to an annual worship service and event recognizing their special generosity, and their names, if they so choose, will be included in a listing of the Legacy Circle members. If you're someone who is considering a planned gift to the congregation or a gift to the Chalice Fund, or maybe you've even told someone you've included us in your will or trust, we would love to hear from you or hear from you again. This will allow us to thank you and welcome you into the Legacy Circle. You can connect with us to learn more or share about a gift at plannedgiving@unitytemple.org or by visiting me at the coffee hour service after today's service. Thank you again for your part in sustaining our beloved community.
We're so glad that you're with us today. If you would, I invite those of you that are here in the sanctuary to take a moment now to greet each other.
Greetings. Yes, after the covenant, you can take the rest of the day off.
Yeah.
Only one day.
I heard you rocked
Greetings.
yesterday.
Greetings.
We came too late.
I'm Reverend Emily Gage. My pronouns are she and her. Our chalice lighter today is Oliver. Oliver's favorite color is green. Please join with me in the words of our chalice lighting. We are Unitarian Universalists. This is the church of the open minds, the loving hearts, and the helping hands. We take care of the planet Earth and each other.
Good morning. My name is Oliver Crimmins, and my pronouns are he, him. As you are probably aware, today is Father's Day. I happen to have double the normal dose of fathers, so I feel like I am uniquely qualified to talk on this subject. Recently, after turning 18, I went to my psychiatrist appointment without my dad for the first time. It was the same as always, doing good, no changes, etc. And then she asked me how much I had before I needed a refill. My dad, Dan, is a morning person, and every morning when he gets up, he sets out dishes for my breakfast and a napkin with my medicine on it. So, at my first appointment as an adult, I had to say that I actually hadn't looked at my bottle in months because my dad sets out everything for me. As I move on to the next stage of my life, I'm realizing how many little things my parents did for me. It's easy to forget all the little things, but they really add up and make a huge impact. So, to all the dads, thank you for everything you do, the huge and especially the little. Whoever you are, wherever you are, on your life journey or in the world, you are welcome here. Come, let us worship together. We invite you to stand in body or spirit and sing hymn 156 in the gray hymnal, O Freedom.
Please join with me now in our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is the prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus we covenant with each other and with God.
Good morning. My name is Vanessa Crowder. My pronouns are she, her, and I serve on your spiritual care team. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. Sharing our joys and sorrows of our lives is one of the ways in which we embody this love in our congregation. Before each service, you can share your joys and sorrows in the binder outside the doors to the sanctuary. You can also email your joys and sorrows to us at spiritualcare@unitytemple.org. If you'd like to talk with someone about what's on your heart, please feel welcome to contact the spiritual care team. We're here to listen and sit with you in times of both joy and sorrow. Here are the joys and sorrows that were shared this week. Jane Coleman shares a joy that Norman Coleman continues to recover his strength at the Subacute Rehab Center in Berwyn, and each day is a little better. Jan Johnston shares, "Thank you, Unity Temple, for 30-plus years of wonderful friendship. I will move on to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Olympia, Washington, where my daughter lives." And John Tandridge shares that his sister Cheryl will undergo surgery this Wednesday and asks that we keep her in our thoughts and prayers. We know that we hold many joys and sorrows in silence. We invite anyone who has a joy or a sorrow to come forward and drop a stone into a bowl of water at one of the 4 stations around the sanctuary. And we invite you to engage in the spiritual practice of silence during this shared ritual. Let us begin.
I'm Reverend Roger, and my pronouns are he, him. I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love, this morning we lament the assassinations of Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and the shootings of Minnesota State Senator John A. Hoffman and his wife Yvette. We lament fear for those working for the public good with high profiles, fear that they may feel in the aftermath of these attacks, the terror that these attacks are intended to spread. We lament the guns that are so readily available in our culture. And this morning, may we hold the beloveds of those who were shot. May we hold the people of the state of Minnesota in this time of assault on their government and the common good. May we hold those who do venture into the public sphere serving the common good. May we be supportive of their courageous actions. This morning, we also hold, especially in our hearts, all those around the world who are in bomb shelters, who fear drones attacking them. We continue to hold a vision of peace. Within this congregation, we hold all those who are struggling. We also hold with joy those who are celebrating. In this congregation, on any day, struggle, joy, sorrow, fear are all present among us. May we notice in these times of challenge, especially those little joys around us, and may each one of us find meaning and purpose and worth in however and whatever we're doing to help the common good. May each one of us find our own unique way to help redeem the soul of this country. May it be so. Amen.
If you are someone who likes to come close when you're listening to a story, you can do like Piper just did and come on and sit on the floor near me. I have a book today called Sylvia and Marcia Start a Revolution. It's by Joy Michael Ellison, and the pictures are by Tashika Silver. And this is a true story, and it's a story that was erased for a long time, so it's especially important to share it. Sylvia Rivera and Marcia P. Johnson weren't just friends, they were as close as sisters. Strolling arm in arm down Christopher Street, they looked magnificent. Sylvia, Marcia cried, "See that girl over there? She looks hungry. Give her $1. Marcia, said Sylvia, "that's all our money. How will we eat?" Marcia smiled. "Us, we'll be fine, honey." "It's not right for these kids to be sleeping on the street," said Sylvia. She remembered what her grandma said when Sylvia wore a dress for the first time. Sylvia had finally felt free, but Grandma frowned. "You're a boy," she said. "Act like it." Sylvia knew she could only act like herself. Sylvia, like Marcia, was a transgender girl. People thought she was a boy, but she knew differently. She hated seeing other transgender girls suffer just for being themselves, too. "We got to do something for girls like us," she told Marcia. "That's a man in a dress," a woman shouted, pointing. "Look at me," said Marcia, twirling. "I'm not a man. I'm a woman, and I always have been." Sylvia laughed. Marcia heard a call. "Here comes Alice in the blue dress." "Oh no," thought Marcia, "that means the cops are coming." Police could arrest transgender girls for wearing dresses. She grabbed Sylvia's hand and they ran. Sylvia panted. "You okay?" "Honey, I'm tired of being treated so bad," said Marcia. Sylvia sighed. Someday, girls like us will be able to wear whatever we want. People will call us by the names we choose. They'll respect that we are women. The cops will leave us alone, and no one will go hungry. Sylvia and Marcia talked and talked about making life better for themselves and their sisters. Then, on June 28, 1969, they took action. Sylvia burst into the Stonewall Inn. "Happy birthday, Marcia!" "Thanks, honey," Marcia said. They grooved on the dance floor until Marcia heard a voice yell, "Here comes Alice in the blue dress." Oh no, she thought, the police. "That's a man in a dress," a policeman sneered at Marcia. "Show me your ID or I'll arrest you." "Not on my birthday," said Marcia. The police ordered everyone into the street and began making arrests. "Come on," Marcia yelled. The two friends rushed toward the police van. They pushed past the officers, broke open the van door, dragged out their friends, and set them free. "The revolution," shouted Sylvia. "It's beautiful." The next day, everyone on Christopher Street was talking about the Stonewall Rebellion. Sylvia and Marcia strode with pride like two lionesses until they heard the call, "Here comes Alice in the blue dress." "Look at these children with no homes running from the cops." Sylvia shook her head. "We still got to do something for them." Marcia frowned. "We're just two friends trying to survive ourselves." "We'll give them what we got," said Sylvia. "Friendship. Let's get a house and open it up to all the young sisters living on the streets." Young transgender girls come from miles around to live with Sylvia and Marcia. Together, they took care of each other. They ate together, laughed together, and struggled together. They became family. Sylvia and Marcia spent their lives fighting for the survival and rights of transgender people. Through it all, they were best friends. Their memory shines like a star, showing us that with our friends, we can change the world. The end. Okay, I'm going to send you out to Unity House.
Good morning. My name is Terry Kinsey. My pronouns are he, him, and I serve on your LGBTQ Gender Reproductive Task Force Justice Team. Each Sunday, Unity Temple splits our offering equally with a partner organization that aligns with our UU values. This week, our offering goes to Task Force Prevention and Community Service, which is located on the west side of Chicago on Cicero near Madison. Founded in 1990, Task Force is a grassroots organization committed to improving the health and well-being of LGBTQ youth of color by providing a safe space for fellowship, HIV and STI screening and education, and on-site referrals to medical, housing, and other social services. They are dedicated to making a difference by working towards solutions in partnership with their community to improve the overall quality of life. We at Unity Temple are grateful to partner with and support this tremendous organization. Task Force will have a booth next Saturday, June 21st, at our Pride Walk in Thatcher Woods event that the LGBTQ Gender Reproductive Team is co-sponsoring with Trailside Museum and the Cook County Forest Preserves. Task Force will share information at their booth at this event about their organization and some of their unique programs, such as Community Safer Space and Violence Prevention, and their Basic Needs and Legal Services program, which includes on-site food pantry, clothing closet, and legal clinic. And for our enjoyment, Task Force will provide a demonstration of Vogue dancing by 2 of their members. Additional information about next week's Pride event and task force can be found in the bulletin and in this week's e-beacon. May what you give bring you joy.
There are 2 readings this morning. The first is a poem by Billy Collins called The History Teacher. Trying to protect his students' innocence, he told them the Ice Age was really just the Chili Age, a period of 1,000,000 years when everyone had to wear sweaters. And the Stone Age became the Gravel Age, named after the long driveways of the time. The Spanish Inquisition was nothing more than an outbreak of questions, such as, how far is it from here to Madrid? What do you call the matador's hat? The War of the Roses took place in a garden, and the Enola Gay dropped one tiny atom on Japan. The children would leave his classroom for the playground to torment the weak and the smart, mussing up their hair and breaking their glasses, while he gathered up his notes and walked home past flower beds and white picket fences, wondering if they would believe that soldiers in the Boer War told long, rambling stories designed to make the enemy nod off. And this from Langston Hughes, I look at the world. I look at the world from awakening eyes in a black face, and this is what I see. This fenced-off narrow space assigned to me. I look then at the silly walls through dark eyes in a dark face, and this is what I know, that all these walls oppression builds will have to go. I look at my own body with eyes no longer blind, and I see that my own hands can make the world that's in my mind. Then let us hurry, comrades, the road to find.
I did a sermon a year and a half ago about the Unitarian Universalist outsized role in eugenics and imperialism, and we had those same two readings, which reminded us to notice when history within our UU fold has been erased. Today we use those two readings to remind us about history beyond our denomination that is being erased. When I moved here around that same time, there was an exhibit at the museum, the Historical Society of Oak Park in River Forest, and it was about housing discrimination, the story of segregation and efforts to end segregation in Oak Park in River Forest. I noted that it was part of an online exhibit, too, related to an online exhibit called Unvarnished: Housing Discrimination in the Northern and Western United States, which focused on 6 communities. Oak Park was one. Another one was Appleton, Wisconsin, where I lived and worked for 25 years. Small world, right? Well, it reminded me, and this was a piece of this online exhibit from these 6 communities, of an exhibit that the History Museum in Appleton did just toward the end of my 25 years there, called A Stone of Hope: Black Experiences in Appleton. Like many people in Appleton, like many white people in Appleton, I bought into the fiction that white racism against blacks wasn't a very big deal in Appleton because there had never been a significant black population. The Stone of Hope exhibit, which came to my congregation, it was a traveling exhibit, blew that fiction out of the water by showing that there was, in fact, a thriving, somewhat large black community in Appleton after the Civil War, late 1800s. That black community included veterans who served in the Union Army. So the exhibit documented this life there, and then it documented how this thriving black community disappeared in the first 20 years of the 20th century. And I mean disappeared. Not one single black person still lived in Appleton by 1920. 1900 to 1920, a thriving community to nothing. The exhibit documented that in this period, there was Ku Klux Klan activity, there was police harassment, there was segregation, there was the beginning of an informal, not in the laws, but still very real sunset idea that blacks could not stay overnight in the community. That lasted through the 1950s. And the truth of the matter is, you don't lose a whole thriving minority community in 20 years without vicious racism at the center of the story. And then, in a sleight of hand worthy of Appleton's most famous native, Harry Houdini, a sleight of hand, that memory of the once thriving community, thriving black community, was erased from white awareness in Appleton. And that erasure was so complete that a white person like me, trying to work against racism for 25 years, was completely oblivious to this history. Many blacks, however, who had in recent times moved to Appleton, and many blacks well beyond Appleton, knew that history. Appleton and its history are thick with the stench of racism and segregation and hatred, and Appleton continues to struggle with a bad reputation among blacks because of this history, and activist whites like me were completely oblivious until this museum exhibit. So my congregation invited Nick Kaufman, who was the creator, the chief curator of this exhibit, to do a sermon about the whole thing. And during the sermon, he showed a slide of a local newspaper advertisement for a Ku Klux Klan rally in the early 1900s. So I'm sitting there, and then I noticed that the address where that took place was, in fact, the congregation's church home for the first 8 years of my ministry. Now, at that time, it wasn't a Unitarian Universalist congregation when it hosted the Klan rally, thank God. It was a German Methodist church. So we lived in that building. We worked in that building. We worshiped in that building for 17 years, oblivious to the stench of racism that permeated it. So a short time after learning all this, I was invited to give a brief reflection at the beginning of a Wisconsin State Assembly session. It was St. Patrick's Day. So I began by talking about the contributions of Irish to Wisconsin in the 1800s, early 1900s, and then I pivoted to share the story of blacks settling in Appleton after the Civil War, and then the assaults that led to their complete departure from Appleton, the total erasure of their history in the white community. And I always remember looking out at that assembly. So there were, it's divided in half, right? There's a bigger half over here, people who are dressed all the same, almost completely white, some male, mostly male, some females, but the same kind of black, red on them. And then over here, the smaller group, because of gerrymandering, that is like, this is what Wisconsin looks like. Different races, different ages, as many or more women than men. Well, what I didn't know was behind me as I was doing this pivot into Appleton's story, the Speaker of the Assembly, that side, was actually showing his disdain by literally making faces behind me. So it was a member of the congregation who served as a legislator from Appleton who got me that invitation. And so for the rest of the day, he punished her by refusing to recognize her when she wanted to speak. So that was an experience. So let's go to a bigger example of the erasure of black history in our country among whites. The 50th anniversary commemoration of the Battle of Gettysburg, which took place in 1913. That's in that same period when the black community was disappearing in Appleton. 53 surviving Confederate and Union veterans came together on that field of battle to commemorate that most famous battlefield. And the nation was riveted by the spectacle of blue meeting gray and exchanging handshakes and smiles and even hugs. It was depicted as a great moment of national reconciliation. And more accurately, what it was a great depiction of the triumph of Jim Crow segregation and the subjugation of black Americans in a different form. President Woodrow Wilson, whose virulent racism is intimately connected with that entrenchment of segregation that Appleton and most of the country experienced in that period, Woodrow Wilson, who had a screening of the racist Ku Klux Klan glorifying Birth of a Nation in the White House, spoke to the surviving veterans from that war. He said, "We have found one another again as brothers and comrades, enemies no longer, generous friends rather, our battles long past, the quarrel forgotten, except that we shall not forget the splendid valor, the manly devotion of the men then arrayed against one another, now grasping hands and smiling into each other's eyes." Lost in that was the actual reason for the war, which was the destruction of slavery. Lost was the sacred person of Wilson's predecessor, that Wilson's predecessor, Abraham Lincoln, proclaimed on that very same battlefield, that a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men, in Lincoln's words, are created equal, shall not perish from the earth. It is rather for us, the living, Lincoln declared, to dedicate ourselves to the great task remaining before us, making real the proposition that all are equal. Woodrow Wilson came to bury that idea And his speech was nothing less than a takedown of the central point of Lincoln's speech, a takedown of the central point of the Civil War. And by the way, there was a missing group of veterans of that event. There's no documentation that any of the surviving 180,000, so there was a total of 180,000 black soldiers who served in the Union Army, there's no documentation that any of them were there. Now, some of them were invited, but they likely knew that this was going to be nothing but a celebration of segregation, and that it was dishonor that awaited them. And of course, there is record of black men working in the encampment, building the tents that the white survivors of the war stayed in, handing out blankets and food, and cleaning the latrines. So the surviving white soldiers and the President of the United States and everybody else besides the black laborers doing the behind-the-scenes work pretended that there were no black soldiers who fought in the Civil War. They erased 180,000 black soldiers' indispensable contribution to the Union victory, and they heeded Wilson's declaration that the quarrel is forgotten. The historian David Blight writes in Race and Reunion that the gathering was a Jim Crow reunion and white supremacy might be said to have been the silent, invisible master of ceremonies. A segregated society required a segregated historical memory and national mythology that could blunt or contain the conflict at the root of that segregation. So today, the white Christian nationalists who seem to have wrested control of our nation are continuing the work of segregating that history, segregating our mythology, erasing historical memory, the type of thing that was exemplified in that 50th anniversary commemoration at Gettysburg. The real reason for the Civil War and the great task remaining before the country in 1863 when Lincoln spoke, and in 1913, in 1963, and 2025 is being systematically erased by white Christian nationalists and the federal government that they appear to control, and they understand that erasing history is part of the oppressor's toolkit. So the indispensable role of Navajo code talkers during World War II was removed on a U.S. Army and Department of Defense websites in compliance with the administration's attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The National Park Service removed Harriet Tubman's image and quote from its webpage about the Underground Railroad. References to Jackie Robinson's military service, the Tuskegee Airmen, Vietnam War Medal of Honor recipient Major General Charles Wilson Rogers, and the Japanese-American 42nd Combat Recognition were all deleted from the Department of Defense website. While most of these egregious references have been restored, so many other pieces of history have been lost. Take, for example, the National Park Service erasure of transgender people like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera from the story Emily shared, who were at the heart of the resistance to police attack at the Stonewall Inn. Previous references on the National Park Service website to LGBTQ+ have been changed to LGB. The description of the Stonewall Uprising now reads, before the 1960s, almost everything about living openly as a lesbian, gay, bisexual, LGB person was illegal. But the events at the Stonewall Inn sparked fresh momentum for the LGB civil rights movement, ! So, what actually happened is gone. Transgender people erased from that event which they were at the heart of. So I'm thinking about all this as Juneteenth approaches, the newest federal holiday. This commemorates the ending of slavery in the United States. Slavery ended at different points. On June 19th, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger ordered final enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation in Texas. So celebrations of Juneteenth in Texas began 1 year later. Federal legislation in 1979 required every state to formally recognize the holiday in some way. I'm not proud of this, but in 1979, I was in high school. I don't think I had ever heard of Juneteenth. Juneteenth was recognized as a federal holiday in 2021. So in the wake of these attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, cities from San Luis Obispo to Indianapolis have canceled their Juneteenth celebrations. The holiday, the history it represents, are in the crosshairs of white Christian nationalists. So obliviousness to the history of black and trans and other people with marginalized identity perpetuates racism, transphobia, and other forms of oppression. Silence in the face of erasing the history of black and trans and people with marginalized identities perpetuates racism, transphobia, and other forms of oppression. Speaking out against these attempts at erasure, that's part of resistance. Seeking to understand and spread awareness of erased history, those are acts of resistance. Celebrating Juneteenth and the anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion and the role of trans people like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera here at the end of June, that's part of resistance. So I'm going to repeat a line that Reverend Emily has reminded us about a few times, I think, lately. Get in good trouble, necessary trouble, and help redeem the soul of America. That quote from a person who not only spoke it, but lived it, John Lewis. Getting in good trouble and helping redeem the soul of America will look different for each one of us. And I want to say so clearly that I hope over and over again you are being reminded from this pulpit that times are challenging. It's not the first time, but they're really challenging right now. That there is something that each one of us can do. We have to find that thing and then lean into it and feel good about it and not feel like, oh, we're not doing enough, we're doing the wrong thing. We're not at the front lines if we're not a frontline person. Find your thing. Know it matters. Lean into it. Trust that others will be doing other pieces of what needs to be done. And I believe it's going to add up. I hope you also hear from this pulpit a message of hope each and every week. We need hope. We need to value what we're doing. We need to not retreat and not feel bad. That's what I have to say today. So, I'm going to introduce thank you. Our closing hymn is a song from the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, 1035. I'm going to invite you not to open the hymnals, but to look up here because you will be sorely misled if you look at the hymnal. And we're going to do this like just what you see up there. It's going to be quick, those lines, and then we're done. There's not repeats or anything like that, okay? We got it? All right. Let's rise and join in singing. Let's get to it. And I invite you to join in the chalice extinguishing words, which I suddenly have to look up for. Carry the flame of peace and love.